Right, hello there. Day 8. Making the room for IMVU. Garage room, furniture room. Furniture room that's fashioned as a garage. So yesterday we were adding some poses. We were starting the process of adding some poses. And as they do take a bit of time to sort out, I've done added some more offline. So yesterday, just save over this. So yesterday we left off at number 18. So that's the room as it was before we started putting in the poses. Where are the seat nodes? Hold on a second. Room seating. So those are the seat spots that we started to add some custom poses to. So it was this one by the ladder and this one by the installation. So we were basically just going to add 4 additional custom seats to the defaults. So the defaults are just the standard avatar standing and avatar sitting. So we've just added 4 seat nodes, but in the process of doing those, so basically what we do before we actually move on to that, so what we do is we place furniture nodes. This is just to recap essentially the process. So we just duplicate some of the standard seat nodes. So we copy the nodes and the dummy because that helps us position the avatar relative to the room. So we just duplicate those, reset, and we just move the set to where we want the avatar to be, generally speaking, positioned in the room. We make an adjustment to the, are we in global? Yes, we're in global. We make an adjustment to, whoops. We make an adjustment to the capture and picture so that the avatars don't vanish outside the room or get trapped inside furniture items or something when they are interacting with one another. So we grab them as a unit, as a pair, and just move them using the manipulation widget. So we do that a couple of times depending on how many custom poses we want. And again, because they are already parented, which is what all these dotted lines are, because they're already parented to skeleton.room, we don't need to do anything else with that. We just select the nodes and move them. And then once we've got that, what we can do is save this file and we can append it into the pose starter file. Which is open pose. There's lots of projects. Where is it? Gone past it. Oh, there it is. So ordinarily, this is the file that we would be using to make avatar poses. And we use this for both avatar poses and avatar poses that are for furniture and rooms. So it's essentially the same. We create the same data or the same type of product, which is just the avatar posed. So it's striking, well, at the moment it's in the T pose, but we are just selecting individual bones and just manipulating them into position to create a pose. So whether this is an avatar pose, so it's something that you wear on the avatar, or whether it's a pose that's associated with a furniture item or a room, what we do in this file, what we create here, is the same. It's just that the end result or the destination differs depending on what the product is. So we just create the pose as we did. But with the furniture item in particular, or a furniture room, let's just reload that. Let's save. So with a furniture room or a furniture item, we have to append, file, append. We append the object. So if it were a couch, we would be appending the couch, but in this instance we're appending a room. So we go to our room file, select the room we want to import, or select the elements of the room we want to import. Object, that's the object folder, because we're now looking at the .blend file as though it is an archive, a zip file. So we then select, there's the mesh, that's the garage. We need that for visual reference so we know where we are in the room. And then we select seat nodes. So select all of the seat nodes and skeleton.room, and then we just append, click the append button, and everything appears. So we do have to set the file up, so that's okay. So what we want to do is view sidebar, increase the clip end distance that we've got, 2500, so we want that to be at least 10,000 because we've got a room. Whoops, not 1,000, 10,000. There we go. So what that does is it brings all those assets into the pose file. So we've still got the avatar, which is what we'll be using to create the poses. We've still got that centered on the grid in Blender. So we've got the XY axes. That's very wonky, but that's the center. And that's the point of origin where the avatar appears when it's inside our IMVU. So that's the exact point where the avatar is placed relative to furniture items and seat nodes and all sorts of things. So once we've got all our assets in, what we then do is, actually we might be able to just select the skeleton.room node because they are, yes, because they are linked together. Skeleton.room controls this. But if we, let's say we want to create a pose for this furniture node, let's enable the move tool so we can see the widget. What we can do is select skeleton.room and the node that we're using to position, to create the pose for. And then what we want to do is just position that, this node, we need to position that at grid center. So what we then have to do is use our views, viewport, top, going to wireframe, and the pose or the avatar associated with this node points in this direction. The avatar for the pose file points in this direction, so we have to rotate this scene round so that they are aligned. So what we would then do is rotate the room, position. So that's just the shortcut keys. R for rotate, G for grab or move. And whatever you do, don't use S, which scales. Whoops. So that scales, don't use that. So line it up, and we want the node's center point, or that's the origin, we want that to match the grid. And we can use the widget, the axes on the widget, to do that or help with that. There we go, spot on. So once we've got the room aligned to the avatar, don't align the avatar to the room, do it the other way around. So the room and the assets to do with the room have to be aligned to the avatar. Once we've got that, we can then create our pose. So at the moment we're in T-pose. We can either override this, so we can use this action sequence. So this is the action editor running along the bottom here. And what we can do is just override this, or we can create a new one by clicking this button or this icon. That duplicates the T-pose, makes a unique version of it, which we can then name. Let's just call this pose 1 for the moment, .pose, and then we can start posing. And we do that just by grabbing individual bones and rotating them into position, like so. This is just temporary, just to go, just as an overview of the process, because the actual poses have been done in another file, which I'll load in a second. So that's what we did. And if you want to move the avatar, use the pelvis node bone, which is this bone that sticks out the back there, not female O3 master root. That must remain static and not move. So that's just an overview of creating, not creating a pose, what is creating a pose, but how you use your assets, the room itself and the furniture, not the furniture, the avatar seating spots or the avatar pose spots. You just want these seat nodes, because that's where the avatar actually stands when it's in IMVU, or its position when it's using a pose spot. So bring in the room, join everything together, just bring it in temporarily, skeleton.room, and then the seat nodes, and then rotate the whole lot relative to the node that you are making the pose for and the posable avatar. So earlier today and yesterday, I don't know, where's it gone? So garage 20, don't save. So I've added a couple more seat spots or avatar spots, just a couple, and re-exported or brought in the associated seat nodes for those, so that we can create a couple more poses, a couple more custom poses. So those use the same process. We're duplicating one of the existing dummies and just positioning them where we want the custom poses. And then we use that, don't save, to create our custom poses. So that was the one that's just being worked on. So it's the same process, brought in the assets into the file, seat nodes, skeleton, and just rotated the room assets to match up with the avatar. So just going to finish this pose off. So the pose has been created, it's finished. So select all, make sure one of the bones is active, move to frame 5, and then press, well, we can either do, so you can either do Control C, Control V, which is copy paste, or pose, copy pose, and there's, whoops, paste pose. So copy pose, we'll get that little confirmation message. Move the timeline slider, pose, paste pose, and that duplicates the pose into that frame. We then need to do a reset, so frame 10, pose, clear transform, all, and that resets. And again, as mentioned yesterday, this is necessary for the FBX file to export properly. So there is one thing that is something to watch out for. It shouldn't be an issue per se, but I'll mention it here because it's something to be aware of. We can't use excuse me, we can't use scale values in our bones, so that's these, but Blender for some reason will include them when a bone is posed. And what that does is it creates what could be a problem, because even though the pose is identical at frame 1 and frame 5, it doesn't move. The fact that these scale values are here can cause problems, because IMVU may be interpreting those in a way that causes problems for the animation, because it can't use scale values written into bone pose positions. So we have to get rid of these, and the way we do that, so let's just expand a couple of these so we can see them. So most of these bones have all got scale values associated with them, and we want to avoid those. So the way to fix this, move the timeline slider to the appropriate keyframe, switch back to, using this button, that's the editor selection button, switch back to the timeline, and in keying menu, select that and select from the list active keying set. We want scaling. Scaling is set. It's normally on location rotation, or it should be on location rotation. If it's not, select that. So we want scaling, and then what we want to do is click this button. That will remove any scale values that may be associated with that pose. So click, it hasn't found any, so we can move the timeline slider to frame 5, because it should. Select all, there we go. Let's do that again. Scaling. So it's successfully removed some. So it's selection based, so make sure the bones are selected. Frame 5, do the same thing again. Click that button. And it's removed some more. So close, not close, delete that and reset it back to location rotation. So what that's now done, or what that now should have done, let's go back to dope sheet. It should animation, insert keyframes. Might have to do this again. Insert keyframes. And then insert keyframes. It should be giving us the orange. Let's just switch poses for a moment. We should be seeing this orange highlight between the poses, between the keyframes, but it's not doing it for some reason. Oh, it's inserted. Scale back. So let's do that again. Select the bones. So it's still a little buggy. There we go. It's got rid of them all because it had some scaling still on frame 10. So if any of the keyframes have any scaling values, it'll distort the sequence. So this is what we were wanting. So that's how you get rid of scale values. So back to the dope sheet. We're in the action editor. So that is our final pose. So we've got seven custom poses. And they all relate to various parts of the room. That's the ladder. That's a door handle, and that's a box. So now that we've got this, we should be able to export all of these and get them into IMVU. So that'll be interesting. So double check everything is in place. So save. Revert that back to the T-pose. So that's the T-pose. And what we can do is select skeleton.room because that controls everything. What we can do is reset that. So we end up with that. Save. Right, so for exporting this, what we want to do is select the skeleton, object mode, so we're toggling in and out. So the shortcut key for that is Control Tab key, or use the context menu. I think that's what's that called. Interaction mode, that's the one. So select skeleton, that's all we need. Then File, Export, FBX. Click that, And then in the options, we want selected objects. Everything else is okay. Geometry, that's okay. Armature, as always, disable add leaf bones. And we want animations this time, so expand the options and disable NLA strips and force start and end keying. So disable those, and what that does is it forces the FBX file to export the sequences as separate tracks, if you like, inside the FBX, as opposed to exporting them all in the same track but earmarking them different start and end points. Save your location, that's okay. File name, that's okay. Double check. And then export. So that exports the sequences, the poses. Let's save out that. Right, for the room itself, go back to the last version, so room 20. So that's what we've got, that's what we're exporting. So what we want to do with this first, hide all the seating. We need to join all the mesh objects together. So we need a unified mesh, otherwise it means that we're exporting each of these as individual mesh components within the room, which does work, but it can be a bit heavy in IMVU because it prefers unified objects or unified scenes. So select everything, select all, make one of them the active object, so just shift click it, and then join everything together. So we've now got a single mesh. We need to check our materials. Oh, before we do that, let's check the name, garage.mesh. So we're in object properties. Down into materials. So we need to make sure all our materials are properly. So they don't necessarily have to be in numerical order, but we do have to make sure there is a numerical append after each material instance that's referenced. But if we want to change the order, what we can do is select an entry. So number 9 and 8 are in the wrong order. So what we can do is click on these two up and down lift buttons, I guess you could call those. Click that, and it moves it up or down. So 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, well, there's actually, ooh, unlucky for some. So that's all our materials are okay. We need to make sure that the vertex group skeleton.room is associated with everything as well. So edit mode, select all, and then click excuse me, click assign, and then just double check. That's okay. Everything else is okay. We've got our UV map. That's fine. Exit edit mode, object mode. Just unhide. So we're using the outliner. Unhide the bits. So that's the skeleton, the primary components of the room. So that's the camera, light, the node that lights link to, and then skeleton.room, which we were just working with in the pose file. Then we've got the furniture nodes. All of those are parented. So these are walls, floor, and ceiling. They're all parented to skeleton.room. And then, where's the seating gone? There's the seating. And then we've got the seating. So those are all, again, the nodes are connected to skeleton.room. That's parenting. So we're selecting the node, selecting skeleton.room as the destination, and then using Control P or parent object. Yeah, parent object, and then we get the little pop-up, and we want that set to object, and that keep transform is enabled so that the position of the nodes don't move, and that just parents everything together. So once we've done that, what we can do is save the file. So we have a version, save as 21. There, we should be able to export all of this. So select all, click on skeleton.room to make that the active object. We can select everything because we can filter this in a moment in IMVU. So double check. And then export. So file, export, FBX, and we'll soon find out if we've missed any steps. So FBX. So for the room, we want selected objects. Everything else is okay. Geometry, apply modifiers. We want that because we've got smoothing assigned to the mesh. Armature, again, disable add leaf bones. We don't need any animation for this, so disable bake animation. File path, file name, that's okay, and then export. Alright, so that's exported it. So let's go into IMVU. IMVU. So, IMVU, create mode, derive new product, excuse me, rooms and furniture, and room, go, and this gives us the blurry background scene. No idea what happened to that texture. It used to be a graffiti wall, but for some reason it doesn't work anymore. So what we need to do now is import the FBX. So standard FBX procedure, but we've got two to import. So let's import the room first. FBX import, load FBX, just to make sure that that works. And it's number 21. Open. So it's brought in everything that we had selected. It's got our skeleton, which are all the nodes combined, and the way that we've linked them all up. All of that creates a skeletal hierarchy. We no longer need to use an actual armature object in Blender to create rooms and furniture, which makes the whole process so much more, so much quicker and much easier to do. but the way that everything is linked together creates the skeletal hierarchy that's needed for IMVU. So it's got our bones, which are the nodes, 15 meshes, that's okay. So we're going to configure FBX. That'll bring the whole lot in. So what we can do now is just deselect the bits we don't want, which are all the helper meshes. Keep the bit that we do, which is the garage. Rename that, or not rename, the mesh ID. Mesh ID 0. So disabling or getting rid of the helpers disables or deactivates the associated materials, so all that we end up with are the ones that we actually want. That's it. Change the scale 0.01. If you're using the starter files, it's always going to be 0.01. And then disable rename room nodes. Then import. Give us a couple of warnings. Those are okay. Import changes. So apply changes. And there is our room. That's very brightly lit. Let's go full screen. Meshes. So it's got all our textures. Let's brought those in. It's going to config. Change the ambient light down to something like 60. Apply changes. It's still quite bright because the light is there pointing straight at that. Oh, and she's gone bald because we're looking through transparency. So it's not brought in, or has it? Could just be the angle of the light. Doesn't look as if the lights have got smoothing associated with them, so we may need to check that. And our box is upside down, or part of it. So what we can do, what we need to do, so what we're looking at is the boxes are not two-sided, but these ones that are open have the peanuts in them, and the peanuts are upside down. So what we can do to fix that, rather than doing double-sided for it, we need double-sided for the cardboard boxes, but rather than doing double-sided for everything, what we can do, select the mesh, and in viewport display, click on face orientation, and that will turn everything red and blue depending on the orientation of a face. If it's pointing outwards, it'll be blue. If it's pointing inwards, it'll be red. So our peanuts are all pointing in the wrong direction because, and it shouldn't be doing that because we do have backface culling enabled, so it shouldn't be doing that. So let's just double check our peanuts. Peanuts. Oh, there we go. Forgot to disable backface culling so that we can see which way around the faces are orientated. So to fix that, quick way of doing that, zoom out, just go into wireframe so we can see this. Edit mode. Deselect all, none. We can use the materials to make selections. So we select the boxed peanuts, that's the one we want. we can select those, just those elements, and from the menu, so that's inside upside down or flipped the wrong way around, from the mesh menu, normals, flip, so if we watch what happens to these surfaces, mesh, normals, flip, and they flip the right way up. Double check, that box is okay, that one's okay, that one's okay. Right, so re-export. You're bound to, in a project like this, it's relatively large because there's a lot going on, bound to have some of these sorts of problems, and it's not really an issue. It's just something to be aware of. So select everything again, skeleton.room, just save the file, export, FBX, just save over the one that we've just created. So selected objects, everything else okay, geometry, armature, bake, that's fine, export. So we'll keep this one in place so that we've got a reference. So create, drive new product, rooms and furniture, room, go, so we need to replace all of that again. FBX import, load FBX, 21. Same thing again, configure, deselect all the helpers, which deselects the materials, leaves all of those, which is good. 0.01, disable rename room nodes, double check that's okay, and then import, blah de blah de blah, import changes, apply changes. So our peanuts are now the right way up, but we can make our cardboard boxes double-sided. There's a cardboard box, two-sided. So adjust the lighting again, so 60, 60, 60. It's probably a little dark. There we go. So we should have all the... Oh, that's one thing we have forgotten to do. Because we've added custom poses, we need to rename the nodes, the seat nodes, that are associated with those custom poses. But in the meantime, it has brought in all the seat spots. And they're all facing the direction they should be in, which is good. So that's something else that we have to fix. So, oh, let's just double check the, whilst we're here, just unhide these for the moment. Let's double check Yeah, so the lights haven't got any smoothing assigned to them. So whilst the mesh is all selected, shade smooth. Oh, and it's still not doing it. So does that mean that's off? Oh, there we go. That's why. So I need to increase the angle. 45. Nope. 65. Nope. 85. There we go. So that, and we may need to edges. Some of these may need to be manually marked as sharp edges. Let's try 75. Oh, there we go, that's better. So this prevents things looking faceted. We've gone over this in some of the other videos. So now that we've got those boxes, we can sharpen the open edges. Right, so that's okay. What were we doing? Oh, seat nodes. Seat nodes. Seating. Right, so what we have to do here is rename them so the custom nodes have custom names. So seat 01 through 12 the ones that are for the custom poses. I need to double check something actually, so just going to save this and load up. And load up the gold bar furniture item. Just to double check. Double check. Wherever that's gone. Where is that? Where's my money, Brian? So it's that one. Open. Yes, so what we have to do whenever we make custom poses, although the spot itself where the avatar appears uses the standard node set, the actual seat node needs to be identified uniquely, with the append being changed to something that's unique to that particular spot. So we're changing it from standing or sitting that append, we're removing that, and in this instance we're calling this one gold bar because it's the furniture item that we created earlier. But we need to do the same thing for our garage seat nodes. So we have to remember which ones are. So we're keeping the numerical the numerical order, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way down to 12. We're keeping that. That doesn't change. All we're changing, and this is just for the seating node, we only change the sitting or the seat node, the big one. Just have to remember so whoops. Actually minimize another instance of Blender, which you can do. 20 plus poses. So let's check our pose list. So we've got 5, 7. So 7 through 12 and then 5. Whoops. Just call this Garage 01. Garage 02. Garage 03. Four. Whoops. It's always uppercase. The first letter is always uppercase. 6, 7. So what that will do is it'll keep the standard ones as sitting and standing nodes, but it'll change all the other ones to accommodate our custom seat spots. So save this again and then export. So save, select all. Ooh, we have to enable, otherwise it'll not export those. So select all, skeleton, shift click, and export FBX. That's okay. That's alright. 21, export. So back into IMVU. Let's create another project. Oh, hang on, before we do, let me just double check something. Where's the light? There's the light. Going to the light's properties, which is that. So that's object data properties for the light. So it's 100 watt, radius 4,000 meters. And let's leave that. I don't know, not double checked this, but I can't remember off the top of my head whether the brightness of a light from Blender, whether we determine that by, we can change the color So we're not, well, aside from changing the actual color, which we can do, what we can do is reduce the apparent brightness of a light by making it grayer. So we're essentially reducing the white intensity, and or we can reduce the power, which is 100 watts. But the problem with the problem that we have making content with Blender is that these settings in Blender are based on the physical scale of objects within the application, and because IMVU content is 100 times larger than Blender's defaults, 100 watts isn't actually powerful enough to be seen in this scene. The 100 watts, the lighting doesn't work very well for some peculiar reason with these particular types of projects, but the oh, you can't do it with this. With these being point lights, they're basically omnidirectional. So what that means is the point acts as an origin of a light source that goes out in all directions, and it's uniform. It's the same brightness regardless as to the direction of the light. For Blender, for IMVU content, 100 watts is an illumination radius, shall we say, that's about as big as that. So for that to work, 100 watts, that probably needs to be 10,000 watts in order for it to properly illuminate the scene, because these properties are based on physics and the physical dimensions of the contents of the scene. Oh, there's the thingy. So you've got a radius that can be set, which is the area of influence over which that 100 watts can light. But because 100 watts is a tiny amount of wattage for a scene that's 100 times larger than Blender's defaults, it's not powerful enough. So we can set a broad radius, but it won't work as well as expected because of the scale difference. But we can always change the color, and because omnidirectional lights in Blender are uniform, they cast the same amount of light in all directions. You can change that amount by just changing the color. That's notwithstanding the ambient light. Apparently in IMVU Studio Beta we may be able to edit lights directly, so I think they mentioned something about that in their Twitch stream, so that's something to possibly look forward to. But anyway, let's get back to what we were doing. What were we doing? Oh, importing. Drive new product, rooms. Go. So again, we've got to remove this. So FBX import, load FBX. I'm just going to zoom through this because we've done it several times now, but that's what you have to do. You'll be doing this. It's rare that you get your export sorted out the first time round. Disable helpers, 0, 0.01, disable, check the materials, that's okay. Import. Apply changes. That's our room. Right, so now the lighting's working properly. That's just 100, 100. And if you don't know, you can change the color of the ambient light so that that's how you change the ambient background lighting. So we might do another export and test that color, changing the color of the light. So meshes, we want to double side that so that our boxes are double sided. Right, so now what we can do is import the pose file. Let's just save this first. Save as. Whoops. So what we're doing now is importing an FBX on top of the project that we've just imported. So load FBX, and we're wanting the poses this time. That's 20 plus poses. It'll give us this message. There's no FBX. The FBX contain no meshes, which is fine. Import changes. So it's brought in all our seat spots, not seat spots, poses. So seat 09, 5, 7, 8, 12, 10, it puts them in an odd order, always does that. So apply scale needs to be the same, 0.01. Again, disable rename room nodes. Not quite sure why I keep thinking that says rude nodes. And then just import. That's okay. Import changes, apply changes. So what we need to do now is reset the skeleton because it's loaded in the avatar skeleton. So we need to reset that to skeleton.room, and that'll switch it back around, and it's messed up the ambient light. So let's save this, save. So for the poses, we want actions, add, and it should have all our sequences, which it does. So what we need to do now, so we need to double check this again as well, because go plus poses. So actions, right, so it's stance dot and then the custom node name. Right, so what have we got? Number 5, so stance dot, what did we call it? Garage 01. Yes, that's right, Garage 01. So that's where the name being unique comes into play, because this is for seat number 5, but we don't actually include seat 05 anywhere in the trigger. So without adding the unique append that we do in Blender, so all the garage bits, IMVU has no way of knowing which one of these. What's that for? I spy shenanigans. Oh, it's the floor node. If we don't make these unique, IMVU has no way to trigger that specific pose or that specific node when it's used, because the seat nodes, the seat names, so seat 04, 05, 06, we don't use those as part of the trigger. All we're doing is stance.garage, well, the unique append, because that's what identifies that particular node as being unique, and the stance bit automatically activates the action. So stance.garage, avatar, pick same ensemble, so 5, replace, infinite loops. So the sequence, we've got 5 frames. Select animation. So the way that we did these, we have 5 frames, and as mentioned in the video, the stream yesterday when we were talking about creating poses, we need to do this for static poses if we're using FBX to export. So what we're doing is just basically creating a static frame range, and then this reset. Let's make this red so it's easier to see. So static frame range, which doesn't have to be 1 to 5, but it's just easy to remember. 1 to 5, and then the reset. And it's this change from the pose to the reset that basically kicks FBX and IMVU in the butt to tell it that there's something actually going on in the file. But the frame range, this bit, is what we use in the action. So what we can do, set the loop start and loop end as our start and end frame range. And we only need 1 frame for this, so we can do 1, 2. And then apply changes. Now which one is number 5? Number 5. So number 5 is by the door. So number 5 is here. And that is our custom pose. So the avatar is pulling the door shut. So all we need to do now is do that on all the poses. So that worked. Stance dot garage 02 avatar, same ensemble, same again, replace loops 0, start frame 1, end frame 2, select our sequence, which is 07, apply changes, which one's 07? So 07 is the one that's looking at this box. So let's see if that's worked. Yep, so that's worked. Stance.garage 3, same ensemble, replace 0, frame 1 to 2, it's number 8. So which one is that? So that's the one looking behind the boards. So that's here. That lighting is very bright. Might have to do something about that offline, because today we're just going over the poses. So another one, stance.garage 04 avatar. So of course this gets repetitive. Number 9, which is the ladder, I think. No, it's not. It's this one in the corner. Trying to grab the sheet of insulation because they are heavy and floppy. So that looks okay. Five. Is that number 10? Yes, that's number 10. So which one's number 10? Excuse me. Oh, that's the ladder. So that's number 10. So that's shoving the insulation against the wall. That pose looks okay. Stance.garage 06. Almost there. Zero, frame 1, 2, replace. So which one is 11? So 11 is over by the other door. Whoops. So going out and reading the notice on the door, remove muddy shoes before entering house or else. What? And then the final one, stance.garage 07. Zero. So 0 is infinite looping, so it just plays this frame range 1 to 2 infinitely. Plays. What's that one? 12. Oh, that's in front of the boxes. It's that one. So that's here. Whoops. Aha. Because we need to assign the pose. Do that again. Ah. It was going so well. So that's what happens when you jump the gun and try and use a pose spot before it has a pose associated with it. Messes the file up. So save. Let's try that again. 12. Dagnabbit. Avatar, blah, 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 blah. Right, so when it does this, literally have to close everything. So save the file obviously before you do this, otherwise you'll lose the whole lot. Then reopen Create. And that should fix the problem. There we go. No idea why it does that. It's something to do with the way that IMVU caches the data locally within the editor. So we've now got custom poses. Oh, now it's doing it to... Oh. What's it doing that for? Oh, that's why. Yeah, so when it gets its knickers in a twist like this, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, well, 5. Save. Don't try struggling with it, just close. Close everything. Reopen. And that should sort the problem out. So there we are. So let's just double check all our custom poses. That's just a standard standing node. There's a custom. And there's a custom. And then we've just got standard seating nodes. And one standing one in front of the garage, or at the door of the garage that's still open. So that finally is everything made, exported, well, set up, prepped for IMVU, exported. So we've done all sorts of stuff to this. It's even brought in the transparency. Let's just disable the what was self-illuminated? Just go through the textures just to double check. Not quite sure why transparency does this by default, but it comes in two-sided, so you have to enable two-sided to then disable it and get single-sided working. So it's just a bit weird why it does that. It's a door, framework. So some of these are quite large textures, so you can just rescale them. So that, save that, is our custom room finally in IMVU and functioning properly. Oh, do we have some... We've even got some vertex color. So the corners have gone a little darker because we did a little bit of vertex painting offline just to add a bit of depth to the room. And it was insulation. So yes, that is our room. Finally finished and in IMVU. So of course the next step would be to do the artwork and publish. And just spinning around the room, actually, this is what we were talking about. This is why we set the room up the way that we did, so that the view of the avatar is not obscured by the walls. Hi, Frenzy. No, we're just about finishing up, actually. We've just managed to get all of this room stuff sorted out. The ladder is quite simple, funnily enough. We did a stream on that yesterday, creating a basic ladder, but this is just, in fact, I'll show you. Before I do though, so yes, this is why we set the room up the way that we did, because it doesn't impede our view into the room too significantly. So of course we've got these edge sections of things like the door frames and what have you, but we can still clearly see into the room. So that's why we set that up that way. But that is our, let's save that. That is our room. Fine. So it's taken us 8 videos and a bit of offline work to get that sorted out. But, oh, and so one of the other things that we were talking about as well, no, just it's just a blank room, so it'll be whatever furniture items people load in. Just find a I'll just use this for now because it's black and white. That'll make this will illustrate what we were talking about before. So you'll see this a lot with dresses, where people create multiple layers of things, and with the way that we've got our material set up, so we've got different material for the back wall versus the wall panels, and we can get rid of those if we wanted to, or someone deriving from the room, if they wanted to, they could just get rid of those by just removing the texture. The same with the insulation, obviously, because that means you've now got this bit of insulation just hanging in no man's land. Yes, we went over making a simple ladder yesterday, but this one is a bit more, it's not more complicated, but so if we remove the pink insulation, what that does, oh, obviously we've got stars just because of the opacity map, but you get the idea. But the way that the room's set up, we've still got a ceiling in place. So it's not empty space. So we can use a layered approach to the room in terms of what it is that, what the room represents. And we can layer certain features up, and the same sort of thing with the boxes as well. We could get rid of those. Where are they? Just by using an opacity map. So in the same way that people do that for their dresses and clothing. Could have sworn I actually had a black opacity map. I have to create one. Oh, no worries. I'll show you the ladder in a second once I've just gone through this. So we can remove elements. Obviously, if you just imagine that the stars are removed fully transparent, so that's a black texture. So what we end up with is the bare room, but obviously you've still got the seats in place, so you do have to be mindful of those. But that allows you to place your own furniture items or set the room back to its defaults, essentially just a bare room, and then allow people to put their own furniture in to occupy those spots or to match up to those spots. But that is the room. We've got it in, it's all lit, everything's sorted out, the poses work, so that's hunky-dory. So let's just go over the ladder quickly because that was made offline. Need to switch back to so invert selection, Control I, and then just hide. So that's the So that's the ladder, and you might guess, just looking at it, how it's made. It's literally, oh, you're very welcome, Frenzy. It's literally just this. So we're going to use the cursor as our focus point, add mesh cube. That's our starting point. We can duplicate this. We're going to use that as well. So all we need to do is scale this. So we're just using the scale tools and the manipulation widgets. We just want to create a lozenge shape and then shape that into a thin shape like that. That's in object mode, edit mode. Whoops, face select. Just grab that and pull it up. So that's the side, simple as that. Then the rung, as we call them, I don't know what you call them in America. Same sort of thing again. We're just scaling this in object mode. So it's very simple. Everything is essentially just object mode manipulation. Move that into position. So we have that. So we have two objects. We have the holdy, handy, holdy, thingy majig sides. And we have one of the steppy, rungy things. And that is your ladder. Because all we need to do then, duplicate, duplicate, and obviously you can change the distance between the rungs, but that is your ladder. And if you want to change the distance, if you want more, if you want finer control, just in edit mode, what we can do is just move each of these into position so that they just about intersect the upright And that is a very basic ladder. And that's how you make them. Very simple. And obviously for texturing, a rung, yes. And for texturing, what we can do is join all of these together. So select them all. Object, join. So we've now got a single unified mesh. So we can go into edit mode and select everything. And what we might want to do actually before we do that, so exit, undo that, join the rungs up first, object, join, because what we want to do, move those to one side, edit mode, face select. We want to get rid of these end faces because we don't need them. They're not visible. So get rid of those. Delete or mesh. Delete faces. So what we end up with is a square tube. Then we can join everything together. That just makes the process of UV mapping easier because we're not trying to unwrap hidden faces. So those faces would be hidden and they're kind of tricky to get at. So for unwrapping, what we want is edit mode. Now depending on how the ladder is being used or the object is being used, select edges on the back side of the ladder that's not the side that's not going to be facing the avatar or the player. And what we want to do is mark some seams on this so that these sections all unwrap flat. So what we're doing is marking 3 sides, leaving this 4th free so that the UV can, well, it's still attached but it'll unwrap flat. Do that for both sides and the top, and then we do one edge on the steps. Do that same thing again on the top. Just going to so it makes it easier to see. So that's what we've got. So that's the top, that's the bottom. And all we do is edge, mark seam, they'll highlight orange. And what this will do now, switch to UV editing. It's got one of the crummy textures in place, so let's just, we'll create a new one. So image, new, width, let's go 256, no 128 by 512, ladder. Frenzy ladder, blank, UV grid, okay. So that's our texture. We're going to unwrap this, so select all. So that's the default UV map that's associated with the cubes that we loaded or dropped into the scene. Then UV unwrap. Oh, so we've got an error at the bottom here. Because we scaled the objects in object mode, we need to address that. So object mode, make sure the ladder is selected. Object menu, we want to apply rotation and scale. So click that, back into edit mode, select all again, and then unwrap. So if we watch, that's the UV map as it is, based on the wonky scaling. So if we do that again, it fixes it. Although that looks a bit odd. But ladder texture or material, so new material, new frenzy ladder, assign, won't do anything just yet. Shading properties, where's our ladder? There it is. View, frame selected. So we now need to add texture, image texture. So this is an image node. And what we can do here, click on the Browse Image to be Linked button. That's this one. And there is our ladder texture. So that's now linked to this node. And all we need to do, left click, drag color, drop that onto base color. And there is our texture. So yes, it's gone a bit wonky. Have we missed a... We may have missed a seam. Or... That looks okay. Do that again. Select all. UV unwrap. Unwrap menu. Conformal. Angle based. Oh no, it's working now. That's a bit weird. Yeah, so that's worked properly now. Not quite sure what went on there. But, so that's our ladder and our texture. So what we can do now is just scale this stuff up. So select all our UVs. Whoops. Select all. And we can use the widgets. Just scale them up. These are our rungs. And all we just have to do is organize the UVs. And obviously you can leave a bit of space for something else that might be on the ladder. And that is how you make a simple ladder from boxes. But to change the shape, if you want to change the shape, let's just bring this over here. That's a teeny tiny foot ladder. If you want to change the shape, all you're doing is just going into edit mode, adding loop cuts. Come on, loop cut tool. 1, 2, and then just doing some basic editing. Whoops. What did that do? Oh, it's added a loop cut down the side. Grab, shift, control. That snaps to the grid to smaller increments. Shift, control. And then obviously make some adjustments to your rungs. So that's all it is. Pretty simple, really. So that's how you make a ladder. Right, so we'll call it quits there because we've got everything sorted out. Finally got the room into IMVU with the custom poses and everything else sorted out. And just thanks for reminding me to do that, actually, Frenzy, because that was done offline. Yes, I know, it's time zone differences are always quite awkward. But this will be archived so you can watch the process again later on. Right, so let's just save that so we've got a archive. But let's get the room back in place. So we want 21. So yes, that's the room. We exported that with all sorts of custom poses. And that's what we ended up in IMVU. With our custom poses. So that's the one for the ladder that we just... I'll take a look at lighting offline and double check how that's set up. But that is our room. So it's taken us 8 sessions to get that sorted out, because obviously there's a lot of talk about things that you want to watch out for as you are making these sorts of things. So it's not just button pressing. Because there's a lot to keep in mind when you're working with this stuff. But there we are. There's our room finally in IMVU. Might try exporting this for Studio, make some normal maps and shininess maps, see how that looks. But that'll be for another day. Right, call it quits there, and we shall see you on the next stream. So thanks for lurking, lurkers. Thanks, Frenzy, for dropping into chat and reminding me to do the ladder. And we shall see you anon. So bye for now, everyone. Yoink.